Part 39. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 381. According to the other party's information, the number of web page views increased by 0.45%, and the number of tickets increased slightly. These two data do not look amazing, and it seems to be very few. But in fact, the base numbers of Xiangjiang Ocean Park, both in terms of web page views and ticket prices, are frighteningly large. They are not at the same level as Yangchuan City Zoo or even the Capital Zoo. On such a huge base, it is extremely difficult to grow even a little bit, especially in page views. Ocean Park finally concluded that the increase in tourists was due to Su Ming's battle with the kidnappers in Ocean Park, and the increase in views was due to the Yangchuan Zoo's online live broadcast platform. Of course, the latter may also bring about an increase in tourists, but the vast majority of viewers on the online live broadcast platform are still mainlanders. They only follow Ocean Park through the internet. If you want to turn this attention into ticket revenue from tourism, you can also. It takes time to accumulate. Su Ming logged into the live broadcast platform and opened the backend statistics. The live broadcast of the Panda Pavilion was always ranked among the top 10 in all rooms. No wonder, the live broadcast has brought popularity to the pandas, and also to the pandas' owner, Ocean Park. No wonder Ocean Park hopes that pandas can stay in the zoo for a longer period of time. Isn't this free advertising, and the effect is quite good? The capitalists in Xiangjiang are too rigid in their work. They clearly calculated the rental fee of several thousand yuan with them, but it has to be said that they still adhere to the spirit of the contract. They proposed to extend the lease period, which violated the two regulations at that time. After a month's agreement, they also proposed a plan to compensate the zoo. Not only would they not charge rent, but they would also provide the zoo with a monthly feeding fund. Su Ming smiled and smiled inwardly. These people must have settled the accounts too clearly. Cooperation would benefit both parties. Su Ming was originally thinking about how to persuade the other party to agree to an extension, but he did not expect that this problem would be solved so easily. Having said that, although things at Xiangjiang Ocean Park are rigid, there is an air of professionalism everywhere. There is even a dedicated data analysis department that can not only capture small changes in website views, but also analyze the reasons for the changes and adjust operating strategies according to the changes. No wonder other companies can become bigger and stronger. What is a modern business model? This is a management concept. It does not mean that spending some money, buying a lot of high-configuration computers, and decorating the office like a spaceship is modernization. In comparison, the zoos on the mainland are much worse. Take the Yangchuan Zoo as an example. The only thing that can monitor data now is the live broadcast platform, and it only monitors the data without analyzing the data. The times are changing with each passing day. Now we are in the era of big data. Simply using modern network equipment is not enough. Hey, old Shen. Su Ming thought for a while, then dialed the number of Shen Yan, the network platform manager, and communicated with him what he thought. Anna Shen was a professional. After listening to what Su Ming said, she immediately understood what he meant. Lao Su, I didn't expect that you, a biology student, would be so forward-thinking when you think of this. Shen Yan said a few words of praise on the other end of the phone before getting down to the topic. Data mining analysis is indeed the general trend. However, there is a certain degree of difficulty. The technology itself is not difficult. It is rare for technicians to be familiar with the industry knowledge of providing data. It is a cross-professional research. Moreover, although this work is of great help to business operations, it is time-consuming and labor-intensive. Unlike doing business, you can see real benefits immediately, so many big companies are reluctant to do it. Don't worry, old Shen. I know what I'm doing. Just go ahead and do it. If you need to understand the industry situation, I'll ask the zoo staff to cooperate with the technical staff, Su Ming said. Although he didn't understand the specific technology, Ocean Park's approach gave Su Ming a lot of inspiration. When running a business, how do you know whether you are doing well or not? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What needs to be adjusted and how? We cannot rely on leaders to make random guesses, they must be supported by solid evidence. The analysis and mining of various operating data is the most intuitive guiding light, providing effective evidence for corporate operations and decision-making, and can effectively help companies avoid detours. Ocean Park is the best example. Maybe in the short term, there will be no benefits, but in the long term, it is necessary to start work in this area in advance, and even set up a special department in the future. In the final analysis, it not only reduces the workload of leaders but also ensures work effectiveness. Just as I was thinking about it, I suddenly felt that something was not quite right. The office is surprisingly quiet. No, Panda Yingying is so naughty and cruel. How can she be so quiet in the office? When I looked up, Panda Yingying was gone. Su Ming was startled. The doors and windows were closed. Where did Yingying go? Scanning the office, Su Ming almost laughed when he took a closer look. Yingying is lying on the sofa in the office. The sofa has a sofa cover. It's like a zoo. Naturally, the unique style is reflected everywhere. The sofa cover is changed every week, with various animals printed on it. The sofa cover is changed this week. All of them are in black and white panda colors. No wonder I didn't see Yingying at first glance. This guy is lying on the sofa, which is like having a layer of protective color. Yingying was not only lying on the sofa, but also had an unlit cigarette in her mouth. She stared blankly at Su Ming behind the desk, feeling endlessly lonely. What's not good about learning? Learn how to smoke. Su Ming quickly put out the cigarette butts in his hand in the ashtray, went up and snatched the unlit cigarette from Yingying's mouth, along with the cigarette on the coffee table in front of the sofa. Half a pack of cigarettes was confiscated. Yingying immediately stopped, bleated, and rolled around on the sofa with her buttocks twisted. It's no use rolling around, Su Ming stared, thinking that if a panda learned to smoke from me, became addicted to cigarettes, and finally died of lung cancer, wouldn't I become a national sinner? The sofa was only 40 to 50 centimeters wide. Yingying was so selfless that she rolled too much. She tilted her body and fell off the sofa. It didn't know the pain, so it continued to roll on the thick carpet without mercy, screaming as it rolled, just like a child who wants to eat candy but the adult won't let it, and the child behaves mischievously. You're used to making mistakes. Su Ming was not in a hurry. He poured a cup of tea, crossed his legs, and said leisurely, "Get out of here slowly. Get up when you feel happy." Seeing that Su Ming didn't want to do this, Yingying had no choice but to get up with a dissatisfied ugh. And sit down against the wall with her head down in a grieved manner. Stop sitting stupidly. You are already fat. If you sit still all day long, you will turn into a pig. Come with me for a walk. After handling business, Su Ming pinched Yingying's round ears and wanted to take it with him. Go out. As soon as I left the office, I heard a loud buzzing sound above my head. Amidst the roar of the motor, a bright yellow Hummingbird 206 helicopter appeared in the sky above the office building. The propeller brought strong airflow and blue paper scraps flew everywhere on the ground and slowly landed outside the office building. Zhao Yun popped out of the passenger seat and shouted at Su Ming. The helicopter was too noisy and he couldn't hear a single word. Fortunately, Su Ming could guess it without even listening to what he was saying. The helicopter has arrived. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 382. The more money you spend, the more efficient you will be. The Hummingbird 206 helicopter that Su Ming purchased is an imported small aircraft. It can be completed in half a year according to the normal set of procedures. Taking over the aircraft is considered fast. At Zhao Yun's suggestion, he found a domestic purchasing agency to help with the process, and paid a handling fee, and then added an expedited fee. It originally took half a year, but now it can be done in 1 month. This is the same as buying a car. For many well-selling models, if you don't increase the price to pick up the car, the salesperson will tell you how popular the car is and how tight the supply is, so you have to wait in line for 3 months. It's been normal for half a year. I'm willing to add 20,000 yuan. Come on, pick up the car next week. All the zoo employees in the office building were lying on the corridor fence, pointing at the helicopter parked downstairs, thinking that some rich man was here to pick up girls. The female accountants of the 2 grades were still joking with each other, saying, "When did you catch such a rich guy?" In the entire zoo office building, they were women of marriageable age, and there were young nurses in the medical clinic, but it was too far away from the office building, so the Kaisi who flew in by plane obviously didn't care about the nurses. After watching the excitement for a few seconds, he found Su Ming rushing onto the helicopter. Everyone suddenly realized that the biggest tycoon and rich man in the whole zoo was Director Su. Sister Tong, that chubby, round, black and white thing in Principal Su's arm seems to be a panda. A young accountant rubbed his eyes and asked Sister Tong uncertainly. Talk too much. Can't the leader take the panda to inspect the work? Sister Tong waved her hand. It's all gone. It's all gone. Go and do whatever you need to do. The sound insulation measures of Hummingbird 206 are average, mainly because the helicopter motor roars too loudly. Fortunately, after entering the cabin, we can finally hear each other talking. Su Ming greeted the driver. Hi, Tony, long time no see. The driver was a young man with blonde hair and blue eyes, in his early 20s, whom he had only met in early May. It was none other than Shive Along's horse trainer, the young man from Xiangjiang who worked as a horse trainer part-time while going to school, Tony. Although this guy's horse training is mediocre, he is quite versatile. Not only can he train horses, but he also has a small helicopter pilot's license. He is definitely a versatile talent. Tony's eyes almost dropped when he saw the panda in Su Ming's arms. He was stunned for 2 or 3 seconds with his mouth half open before he said, "If I'm not mistaken, this is a panda." "Should I praise you for your erudition or your good eyesight?" Su Ming laughed. "Of course this is a panda." Although Zhao Yun was a little surprised, he had been with Su Ming for a long time and was somewhat immune to Su Ming's often shocking behavior. He patted Tony on the shoulder and said, "Take off, my Italian boy. I hope you can focus on flying, not this panda." Oh. Panda Yingying didn't know if she understood what Zhao Yun said, so she sat in the back and roared at Zhao Yun threateningly. Unfortunately, it was not scary at all. "Oh, my God. It's such a crazy country, but I kind of like it here, haha." Tony shrugged, turned his head and looked directly in front of the plane, holding the plane's control stick with one hand, and quickly navigating the extremely complicated. He flipped a few buttons on the control panel and said, "Mr. Su, please fasten your seat belt, and don't forget to fasten your seat belt for Mr. Panda too. You get what you pay for." The world's smallest helicopter, the Mosquito helicopter, can only accommodate 1 person. The cockpit is smaller than the hatchback Chang'an Benben. People sitting in it have to curl up and it is very uncomfortable. As for this Hummingbird 206, the internal space is almost as large as that of a medium-sized off-road vehicle, and it doesn't feel cramped at all when sitting in the back row. Su Ming quickly pulled the seat belt and buckled it on himself, then found another one and buckled it through Yingying's chubby belly. Yingying twisted her body twice. The safety belt designed for humans seemed a bit too high when trapped on the panda. Yingying seemed not used to it. "Haha, in the future I will go to Dobao to look for it and buy you a child's seat." Su Ming rubbed Yingying's head. The motor roared, the propellers spun wildly again, and the helicopter slowly rose from the ground. Su Min and Yingying were lying on one side of the window, looking down through the glass. Their vision became wider and wider. The hummingbird stopped at a height of more than 30 meters and stopped climbing in mid-air. Soon, most of the zoo area was empty. Close your eyes. If you risk your life and fly high, a slightly more powerful civilian helicopter can break through 2,000 meters, and armed helicopters, such as the famous Apache, can even reach an altitude of 6,000 meters. However, the main function of a helicopter is to cooperate with the ground and conduct low-altitude operations and patrols. Under normal circumstances, there is no need to fly too high, which is unsafe and meaningless. You cannot use Apache to fight fighters, so ordinary household helicopters are used to fly. The height generally does not exceed 2,000 meters. Small civilian helicopters such as the Hummingbird 206 usually fly at about 100 meters, just to ensure that they do not hit the building. Su Ming's current height was almost exactly parallel to the top floor of Tingfeng Pavilion in the distance. Two women were standing in the corridor outside the top floor of Tingfeng Pavilion. Squinting and knocking, one is Hong Fei. Hong Fei is still walking on a crutch, and the other is a smart lady in a black suit. Who is it if it's not Ding Zheng? Seeing a helicopter suddenly appear in the sky, both women looked this way. Su Ming could more or less guess what these two were up to. Su Ming was too lazy to care about other people's private affairs. He couldn't stop his employees from dating. It was a different era now. Su Ming was not a feudal patriarch, so he certainly wouldn't stop his lovers from having a tryst. But looking at their appearance, it didn't look like they were having a tryst. How could people who were having a tryst be 8 feet apart from each other? No matter what they did, these two girls wouldn't get pregnant no matter how much trouble they made. Tony asked, "Mr. Su, where are we going?" "Is the gas full?" Su Ming asked. "It's full, and there's a spare tank, which can last about 700 kilometers," Tony said. "Let's go around first, and then go to Suntown. I'll treat you to Chinese specialties," Su Ming said loudly. "Great, I really want to taste authentic Chinese game." Tony gave a thumbs up without looking back, and turned the joystick. Su Ming immediately felt a centrifugal force coming, and the helicopter turned around. The 100-acre Shuahun Lake looks like a larger bathtub, and the Shuaxi Lake is not even a small wash basin. Flying over the zoo area, the area below is lush and green, and entering the back mountain. Tony lowered the altitude and almost flew over the treetops below. Sitting in the plane and looking down, he felt that it was the trees below that were moving. The forest army composed of trees was running quickly from below. Several road construction teams were busy in the mountains. The construction of Gaiyuxianju has come to an end. From the sky, a small ancient peach blossom spring village has taken shape. A large group of foxes heard the loud noise above their heads, all wearing cute little Taoist clothes, jumped out of the house, gathered together, and tilted their necks to the sky to point and talk. Outside Chen Yaoliang's tomb, some workers were busy with scaffolding. Looking down from a high place, there was a dark entrance on the mountain wall, with a faint light flickering inside. It was a mining lamp used for work lighting, which looked a bit spooky. Snake Garden, there was no ghost in the Snake Garden. This place has not been fully opened yet, and the road has not been built. Further away, the huge sloping wall is clearly visible. From this angle, it really looks like a beauty lying on her side. The construction team for the hot spring resort has arrived. Batches of stone and wood have been transported up from the small road. A small piece of open space has been opened up next to the hot spring. From the sky, it looks like a small bald spot on the mountain's head, and an excavator is parked there. The howling of wolves and barking of dogs could be heard everywhere in the mountains. The dogs in the mountains found the traces of the helicopter and howled to the sky. The farther halfway up the mountain seemed to be covered by a thin layer of mist. In the mist, the silhouette of a classical building was looming, more like the legendary paradise in the mountains. Only the trucks that occasionally drove along the newly built winding mountain road to transport raw materials and finished wine showed that this paradise was creating wealth every minute. Everything was thriving, which made Su Ming very satisfied. After inspecting the back mountain, the helicopter turned and flew to the reservoir. Everything was okay in the back mountain, and the reservoir was also good. A row of simple wooden houses were built by the lake as a temporary residence for the employees of the fishery company. But halfway through the flight, Su Ming found something wrong. He encountered the same problem as Zhou Jin had encountered before: someone stole the fish. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 383. The water area of Huading Reservoir is thousands of times larger than that of Shuahun Lake, and the area for fish farming is also hundreds of times larger than that of Shuahun Lake. It is almost impossible to completely guard it. When Zhou Jin was farming fish in the reservoir before, he adopted a more extreme method. He raised a group of hooligans. When he met those who came to fish, he would beat them up and fine them. When he met those who really stole fish, well, he would even beat those who fished up. The fate of those who really stole fish was even worse. Later, Su Ming asked the bald man, who had become a good man, or at least had become a good man on the surface. He stammered and said that he broke the leg and detained the man to ask the other party's family for a compensation. However, there are many fishing enthusiasts in Yangchuan City. With such a large area of the reservoir, it is impossible to block it with violence alone. The old man Zhu Chenggui who came to fish at the beginning is an example. No matter how strictly Zhou Jin guarded, there would still be people fishing secretly by the reservoir. Su Ming simply replaced blocking with dredging. While farming fish in the reservoir, there was also an open fishing business, and the price was equal to the market price of fish. Most people who have the leisure to fish don't lack that little money, they just want to have fun, so this basically eliminates illegal fishing. Even if there are a few people who come to fish secretly, they can't catch much with a pole. The fear is to encounter fish thieves, the kind of fish thieves who come specifically for the catch, fully armed, and even take some extreme methods that harm the environment, stealing hundreds of kilograms or tons at a time. Such people, whether it was Zhou Jin in the past or Su Ming now, are severely cracked down. This is no different from a thief entering the house. If you catch him, you will suffer a lot. The reason why Su Ming came to the reservoir was not completely a whim. Liang Shi reported to him more than once that after the reservoir became famous, a group of people often came to steal fish. Liang Shi and his team took people to catch them several times but failed to catch them. There is nothing you can do about it. Such a large reservoir cannot be completely prevented. If you are not afraid of thieves stealing, you are afraid of thieves thinking about it. Now Su Ming sees that someone is stealing fish. On the water below, there was a simple rubber boat. It was not appropriate to call it a boat. Strictly speaking, it was a simple artificial floating object. 4 or more large tires were put together, and the tires were simply connected with wooden boards, like a floating platform on the water, with a large net towed behind. Looking down from the height of more than 30 meters from the plane, the large net towed behind the rubber boat was bulging and full of fish. There were 2 men on the boat, wearing long rubber shoes. One of them was bending over and scooping out some granular feed-like things from a large bucket, throwing them into the water in handfuls. Fish kept floating up on the water around, and the other one was catching them with a large scoop net. "Oh, sir, are they feeding? But those fish don't seem normal." Even Tony, a foreigner who didn't understand fisheries at all, could see that something was wrong. Feeding? Su Ming's eyelids were jumping. The people below were not feeding fish feed at all, but a chemical with a strong anesthetic effect. After eating it, the fish would become comatose and automatically float to the surface of the water. If it were just that, it would be fine. The most hateful thing is that this chemical will spread in the water, affect the water quality of the reservoir, and cause fish to get sick. If it is a large surface like the Shuaxi Lake, a few barrels of such chemicals can make the fish in the entire lake turn over and die more than half. Tony, land, I want to shout. Su Ming grabbed the communicator on the helicopter. The helicopter slowly descended and almost stopped on the water. The airflow brought by the propeller blew ripples on the water surface below. More than 10 meters away, the simple rubber boat was also blown up and down. The two fish thieves put down their work and squatted on the boat to look over here. Su Ming opened the door of the plane, revealing half of his body, and shouted loudly with a loudspeaker, "Who allowed you to come here to fish? Go ashore and accept inspection." Panda Ying Ying squeezed over from the seat next to her, showing her head, grinning at the two people, and looking very fierce. The two men looked honest, and Su Ming thought they were nearby farmers. But one of them saw the helicopter door open and actually picked up a big harpoon from the rubber bed and pointed it at the helicopter, shouting fiercely. Following the wind, he could vaguely hear the other person shouting, "Mind your own business, I'll kill you." This person probably didn't know the relationship between the person on the helicopter and the fishery company, and thought it was a passerby who was meddling in other people's business. Is this lawless? Su Ming was almost laughing with anger. He was caught stealing fish, but he was still so arrogant. Was he going to rob them openly? If it was an armed helicopter, that person would definitely not dare to be so arrogant, but the Hummingbird 206 was a standard civilian aircraft with no weapons on it. Even if it looked very high-end, it really couldn't do anything with the small broken rubber boat on the water. The other party also recognized this point, so he dared to shout. Su Ming couldn't jump from the plane into the water to catch them. "Tony, what weapons are on the plane?" Su Ming asked. "No weapons, but I can control the helicopter to fly sideways on the water. The propeller is the most powerful weapon. I can crush them and their boats. Of course, the law and conscience do not allow me to do this." "Then you are talking nonsense," Su Ming gave him a middle finger. Using helicopter propellers to strangle, it's a pity that he could come up with this idea. The people on the small rubber boat shouted, but their brains were not broken after all. The helicopter could not do anything to the small broken boat, and the small broken boat could not do anything to the helicopter. Moreover, now that they were caught stealing fish, of course they had to grease their feet and leave quickly. One person cursed at the plane provocatively while paddling the small broken boat towards the shore, while the other took out his phone to call, probably to call for his accomplices to help. The stolen fish could not be lifted by the two of them. Judging from the route of the retreat, this group of people was definitely experienced and well prepared. A few dozen meters away was a wetland with few people. The wetland was full of dense trees. As long as the boat docked, the two people could escape with the fish, and the helicopter might not be able to catch them. The several boats of the fishing company were small yachts. The water in the wetland was too shallow for the small yachts to dock. Even if the people of the fishing company found them, they could not catch up and could only watch them escape. Su Ming quickly called Liang Shi and asked him to call the police and bring the yacht over, then directed Tony to follow the Hummingbird. The Hummingbird was always hovering more than 10 meters above the small broken boat, and the wind from the propeller made the small broken boat below bumpy. But it was just bumpy, and it didn't have any practical effect except blowing the two thieves' hair. The small broken boat slowly but firmly approached the wetland. The two thieves even proudly raised their middle fingers to the sky and laughed arrogantly at the people in the plane. "You are courting death." Su Ming suddenly pulled open the helicopter door. Dividing line. It is said that 2K per chapter is convenient for mobile reading, so I will try it too. Of course, the total number of words will not be small. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 384. Su Ming pulled open the helicopter door and showed up in the air more than 10 meters high. This action startled several people. Zhao Yun thought that this boy was angry and wanted to jump down to kill the two fish thieves, so he quickly grabbed his clothes to prevent him from doing anything stupid. More than 10 meters high is no joke. Don't look at the water below. If you jump down from such a height and fall into the water in the wrong posture, the strong impact can knock you unconscious. Panda Yingying used agility that was completely inconsistent with its fat body, and flashed back to its seat. Its fat body was tightly pressed against the door on the other side, keeping a distance from Su Ming. Its two big paws held the safety belt tightly, and stared at Su Ming vigilantly. Last time in the ocean park, Su Ming lifted it up and pretended to hit the kidnappers. Yingying was afraid that Su Ming would use it as a cannonball to hit the two fish thieves this time. "Look, kid, come down if you dare," the two fish thieves were quite arrogant. After a moment of hesitation, they immediately started to mock and laugh at the plane above. Perhaps they realized that Su Ming had no way to deal with them. Although the simple rubber boat with tires they made looked very shabby, it was quite stable. With 4 large tires on all 4 sides, there was basically no possibility of capsizing. It could go to big rivers, not to mention a mere reservoir. Su Ming really didn't have much to do. His few brave generals were not here, and even if they were, it would be useless. Even the largest alligator turtle at present might not be able to capsize this rubber boat. However, Su Ming naturally had his own way. Then he made a move that stunned everyone. He quickly unzipped his pants, took out little Su Ming, and yelled, "Water forbidden spell, wrath of the rain god." Shhhhhhhhh. A stream of light yellow liquid suddenly appeared in the sky, drawing a beautiful arc, sparkling in the sun, and falling from the sky like a small waterfall. The two people below reacted very quickly. They were stunned for less than a second, and immediately understood what happened, and quickly dodged to the side of the boat. According to the law of free fall, a distance of more than 10 meters, whether liquid or solid, takes at least more than 1 second, plus the buoyancy of the air, the distance lengthened by the arc, and a series of factors. In short, in theory, these two people should be able to avoid this wrath of the rain god. But the problem is that the propeller of the helicopter above is still spinning, and the wind it brings is so strong that the water surface more than 10 meters below is rippling, not to mention a stream of urine. The water-based forbidden spell, the wrath of the rain god, plus the assistance of the wind-based magic above the head, greatly increased its power. The originally straight water line was blown by the strong wind and turned into tiny urine beads all over the sky, as if a spring rain was falling from the sky. Who can avoid the rain? No one, unless he has an umbrella. Will the two fish thieves bring an umbrella? Obviously not. The fine spring rain, like the hair of a lover, brushed the face of the fish thieves. It's a pity that this lover probably hasn't washed his hair for several years, and the smell is really unbearable. Oh my god. It stinks, it stinks. The rain hit the banana leaves, and the two fish thieves on the boat were immediately drenched all over their heads and faces. The guy holding the harpoon just tilted his head up and gave the middle finger, his big mouth opened and laughed happily, and a few urine beads fell into his mouth very accurately. Su Ming has been a bit irritated recently, so his urine is naturally a bit strong. Puh, 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 the harpoon man felt sick and spat violently. After Su Ming finished peeing, he felt refreshed all over, shuddered, and then shook twice, put the gun back into the sheath, and laughed at the people below. "Sorry, I'm not a virgin anymore, I don't have virgin urine for you to drink, you just have to make do with it. Damn it, you little bastard, if you dare, come down, I'll kill you." The harpoon man waved the harpoon viciously. "If you dare, come up," Su Ming said with a puff, and spit out a big mouthful of saliva again. This time, the two people below were lucky, and the saliva was blown away. "Uncle Zhao, did you pee?" Su Ming turned around and asked Zhao Yun, who was sitting in the front row. Zhao Yun was angry and amused. Even if he had to pee, he, a man in his 40s, couldn't just take it out and throw it away like Su Ming. It would be embarrassing. Moreover, when Su Ming used his big move just now, Zhao Yun also subconsciously took a sneak peek, just like all men who met another man standing side by side when going to the toilet. After seeing it, he felt a little inferior. Anyway, he refused to show little Zhao Yun in front of Su Ming. Tony didn't worry about this. First, he was concentrating on setting up the plane. Due to the angle, he didn't see little Su Ming. Second, as a foreigner, he was more confident in this aspect. What a pity, Su Ming looked at Tony with regret. Foreigners' urine must taste stronger, enough for the two bastards below to drink a pot. But Tony had to set up the plane and couldn't spare time to pee. Oh. Panda Yingying suddenly lay on the seat with her back facing the sky, and pointed her paws hard at her belly. Su Ming was happy, his small penis / the penis was full and erect. No wonder it is so difficult to give birth to a red panda. This one is so big, but the penis is only a little long. It looks so pitiful. If the panda version of the sunflower manual is used, they can probably practice without castration. Haha, you little rascal, Su Ming laughed, flicked Yingying's little / cock / then unbuckled Yingying's seat belt neatly, picked up Yingying, spread her legs and pointed outside the plane, making a shush sound. Yingying probably has been holding it in. Although her cock / cock is small, she has a lot of stock. A big waterfall fell from the sky, and it turned into a heavy rain halfway. If Su Ming just rained a drizzle, now Yingying's is simply a downpour, falling from the sky. Haha, who said that a short cock / cock is useless? Don't look at my short length, but I'm very capable, Su Ming praised Yingying heavily. Yingying seemed very shy. She covered her eyes with her two paws and turned around to arch into Su Ming's arms. The two fish thieves below were attacked by urine continuously, and finally realized that on the water, they could only be beaten and had no power to fight back. What else can he do? He should just bear the humiliation. After all, urine is not sulfuric acid, and drinking a few sips will not kill him. He rowed hard and approached the wetland. Damn it, you have guts, kid. Row quickly. It was only a dozen meters away from the shallow water of the wetland. As long as he got ashore, Su Ming would have no way to deal with them. At this moment, 3 or 4 people came out of the woods in the wetland, holding net bags and buckets in their hands, and one holding a machete, waving at the two fish thieves. Boy! If you have the guts, come down, I will definitely kill you. Seeing the backup coming, the harpoon man began to be arrogant again. Su Ming looked around and saw the shadow of the company's fishing boat on the water far away, but by the time Liang Shi came with the fishing boat, the gang had already run away, and he must not let them get ashore to join him. Is there anything else to throw down? Su Ming asked Tony loudly. If it didn't work, he wanted to take off a seat and throw it down. Tony was a very smart guy. Inspired by Su Ming's water magic, his eyes lit up. Gasoline. Boss, there are 10 gallons of spare gasoline in the back. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 385. Opening the storage compartment, I saw 2 insulated anti-static plastic barrels. I lifted them up and shook them a few times. They were quite heavy. 1 gallon is about 3.7 liters, and 10 gallons is 37 liters, enough for half a tank of gas for a small car. Good job, Tony, Su Ming laughed. Mr. Su, are you going to set fire? Wow, so exciting. Tony seemed to be the one who wanted to cause chaos in the world. He shouted excitedly, do you want me to raise the plane so that the gasoline can cover the largest range and turn the entire lake into a sea of fire? Let's use a super fire forbidden spell. Su Ming's mouth twitched. This foreigner's thinking was more unrestrained than his own. The whole lake turned into a sea of fire. It was quite exciting to think about it. Next time, dear Tony, this is my own lake, Su Ming laughed, unscrewed the lid of the gasoline barrel, and poured it down. The two fish thieves were about to reach the shore. They were rowing with their heads down and didn't even look up. The two of them finally figured it out. Being urinated on was like being raped. Since they were powerless to resist, they might as well enjoy it peacefully. If they couldn't enjoy it, they would just accept it. The fish could be sold for a few thousand yuan when they were transported to the shore to compensate for their wounded hearts. Suddenly, they felt a chill on their heads again. The harpoon man thought it was urine again. He gritted his teeth fiercely and thought, "You little bastard, you urinated on me. Next time I'll poison you and kill all the fish in the reservoir." But then, a pungent smell of gasoline filled the air. Gasoline. "You little bastard, spill gasoline." The other fish thief yelled and paddled hard, trying to avoid the gasoline falling from the sky, but it was too late. Half a barrel of gasoline, almost 10 liters, poured down, and it was like a torrential rain, all over the boat. The two of them were splashed with gasoline all over their heads and faces. It's no use pretending to be a coward and bearing humiliation at this time. He could remain calm after being peed on a few times, but now it's gasoline that's falling from the sky. Any normal person would be scared. The harpoon man subconsciously looked up. It would have been better if he didn't look, but when he saw it, the harpoon man yelled and was scared to death. More than 10 meters above, Su Ming had a row of cigarettes in his mouth, all of which were lit. In the airflow of the propeller, the sparks on the cigarette butts flew everywhere. This spark could be blown out by a fart at ordinary times, but now, in the eyes of the harpoon man, it was simply a ghost fire that was asking for his life. Calm down, the harpoon man yelled. "Damn it, I just stole some fish from you, is it worth risking my life?" "Stealing some fish is not a big deal, the key is that you are too cheap." Su Ming held a row of lit cigarette butts in his hand and laughed at the loudspeaker. "I just rinsed your mouth with urine, and now I will burn it with fire to help you live a clean life." "I don't believe you dare to throw it," the harpoon man shouted fiercely. On the plane, Zhao Yun couldn't help but pull Su Ming, playing for a while. "Arson is not a joke, if these two people are really burned to death, Su Ming will also get into big trouble." But it was too late. Su Ming threw a cigarette butt casually. Looking at the slowly falling cigarette butt, the harpoon man almost peed out of fear. This kid is crazy. Just for a few $1,000s of fish, he really wants to kill people. Fortunately, the cigarette butt was blown away by the wind from the helicopter propeller, and it floated out before it fell halfway. It landed on the water surface more than 10 meters away from the small broken boat, and it went out with a puff. "Let's see if you will be so lucky this time." Su Ming was relentless, holding a handful of cigarette butts and pretending to throw them. One cigarette butt might be blown away, two might be, but a bunch of them, as long as one fell on the small broken boat, it would be buried in the sea of fire. The harpoon man and the other fish thief finally couldn't hold it anymore. How dare they gamble their lives for these few $1,000s? They gave up the small broken boat without hesitation, jumped into the water with two plops, and swam towards the wetland shore with their hands and feet. Just a joke. Don't mind it, Su Ming was not stupid. He didn't plan to burn these two guys to death at all. His purpose was to force them into the water. The harpoon man quickly swam to the shallow water area. The water was only up to his chest, and he could barely stand up by stepping on the mud at the bottom of the water. This man only remembered to eat but not to be beaten. His condition improved slightly, but he got angry again. He turned to Su Ming in a somewhat embarrassed manner and shouted, "I will be back." "Do you think you are Illidan?" Su Ming stood at the cabin door, snapped his fingers, and scattered his mental power into the water. Before the harpoon man finished speaking, he suddenly felt a slight pain in his waist, as if he was pricked by a needle. He didn't pay much attention to it, but just 2 or 3 seconds later, his skin was numb from the explosion. Then, his butt hurt again, and he was pricked again. Oh my God, there is something in the water. The other fish thief obviously enjoyed the same treatment and screamed in fear in the water. On the plane, Zhao Yun looked down curiously and saw the two people floundering in the water. What's in the water? Is it alligator gar? Zhao Yun knew that Su Ming was raising alligator gar, and recently alligator gar had given birth to a large group of young fish, so he thought that these two unlucky guys were attacked by alligator gar. Of course not alligator gar. If we talk about ferocity, alligator gar is certainly no problem, and its attack power is strong enough, but it's already shallow water, and the little alligator gar's combat power is not strong, and it's easy to be caught by the enemy. Uncle Zhao will know it when he sees it. Su Ming smiled strangely. The harpoon man grabbed randomly in the water, and indeed caught the little guy who bit him. Based on the feel of his hand, he could tell that the guy was not big. The harpoon man pinched the fish fiercely, trying to kill the strange fish in the water. Even if it was a piranha, it only had strong teeth. An adult male could definitely pinch it half to death with a strong pinch. However, the harpoon man's face suddenly changed drastically, and he screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Of course, when his palm emerged from the water again, there was a small meatball covered with thorns in the palm, which looked like a cactus, but the thorns were much thicker than those of a cactus. Zhao Yun suddenly realized that it was a pufferfish. Last time in Huiying County, Nangong Huan caught one. Later, Su Ming not only collected pufferfish, but also bought all the pufferfish he caught and put them in the reservoir. Under the water at this time, dozens of pufferfish, close relatives of pufferfish, were controlled by their mental power, holding back their anger and turned into hedgehogs covered with thorns in the water, stabbing at the two guys who stole the fish. Oh! Oh! Oh my God, hum! The two were stabbed in the water and screamed like ghosts and wolves. They didn't dare to grab with their hands, so they could only flutter towards the shore desperately, splashing water everywhere. But the short few meters of water seemed to never end. The sharp spines of pufferfish contain trace amounts of toxins, which are not fatal, but can act as anesthesia. The harder they push, the faster the blood flows. After a few times, their bodies become weak and their hands and feet don't obey their commands. The few people on the shore who came to help were so scared that their faces turned pale. They were so close, but no one dared to go into the water to save them. Not far away, there was a roar of motors from the water. Liang Shi brought 7 or 8 employees of the fishery company and finally arrived on 2 small yachts. "Get out!" I don't know who on the shore took the lead and shouted, and a group of people turned around and fled without hesitation. Liang Shi, I'm Su Ming. Let's get these two guys out first." Su Ming put his hands on his hips and shouted into the wind on the helicopter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 386. Liang Shi led several workers into the water and dragged up 2 fish thieves who were too numb to move. The 2 of them became drowned rats, so numb that the energy had not passed, and they lay on the shore like corpses. The physical damage is secondary, the psychological trauma is too serious. First, he had urine poured all over him, making him dizzy with nausea, then he was frightened to death by gasoline, and finally he was attacked by a group of terrifying aquatic creatures in the water. A series of blows. It would have been difficult for someone like Nangong, who grew up in the city, to the little girl might have collapsed. These 2 people can still stay awake, which is really a good psychological quality. It's them. At least they stole fish 4 or 5 times. Liang Shi recognized it at a glance. It was this group of people who often came to the reservoir to steal fish. What he recognized was not the 2 people, but the small broken boat. The boat modified with 4 big tires was too conspicuous. Liang Shi saw someone from a distance several times in such a boat to steal fish. Every time they went to catch him, but the other party was well prepared, specifically looking for a wetland where yachts couldn't anchor, like today, to talk and escape. The reservoir water area is too large and there are countless wetlands that are rarely visited by people, making it impossible to prevent them. Mr. Su takes action. 1 is worth 2, a classmate of Liang Shi's classmate smiled and flattered them, and then asked, Mr. Su, what should I do with them? How to deal with it, how to deal with it? Just abide by the law and leave it to the police. Su Ming shrugged. When the harpoon man heard this, he almost spit out a mouthful of old blood. Do you abide by the law? Then who was it that wanted to burn them to death just now? Not long after, sirens sounded from the shore, and the police station where the zoo was located arrived. When Su Ming called the police in Huiying County, the other party ignored him at all. That was because it was not Su Ming's place. But in Yangchuan City, especially the zoo, Su Ming is the biggest local snake. The director of the police station and the old director of the zoo security department are comrades in arms. For anything related to the zoo, the police station will dispatch the police immediately to help. What's more, Su Ming is now almost the son-in-law of Yangchuan City's police force, and more than half of Nangong's family are leaders of various police departments. If he and Nangong really get married in the future, Su Ming will have to rely on Su Ming to help him become the director. You, Si Guzi, it's you again, you bastard. There were no outsiders present. Director Li, who was in charge of the film, came up and kicked the harpoon man over. He turned to Su Ming and said, Director Su, I know this kid. He stole the film in the past 2 years. The Wire was caught and sentenced to 1.5 years, but he was released and started stealing again. Li Suo, this guy has a few accomplices. Su Ming handed over the cigarette. Director Li took out a lighter, lit one for Su Ming, and then lit it himself. He waved to the 2 police officers who followed him, take these 2 people back to the station. Director Su, don't worry. I am very familiar with this kid. I was the one who caught him that year. I will ask the whereabouts of the other people to ensure that they will not cause you any trouble in the future. Thank you very much. I'll ask Liang Shi to send you a banner. Su Ming chuckled and said, by the way, I'll ask someone from the TV station to report it. Director Su is interested. Director Li smiled with a smile on his face. It is not easy for a small police station to be on TV. Of course, there are shortcuts, such as videos of violent law enforcement being filmed. Oh, and also, these 2 guys were stung by the pufferfish I raised. They will probably be numb for an hour. They can just take them back and drink some hot water. Su Ming chuckled. It's good to be numb. You don't even need to wear handcuffs. This will help us reduce our workload. Li Suo laughed, pointed to the helicopter parked not far from the shore, and said with a smile, I was in the institute just now, seeing this guy flying over. This feeling is yours. Dear, there are also foreign pilots. Mr. Su, your business is getting bigger and bigger. It's not a big deal, it's not much money. If you like it, Suo Li, I'll give it to the police station to drive a single driver, which is about 100,000 yuan. Su Ming said. Then don't dare to accept it. I know this thing is not expensive, but it consumes gas. We don't even dare to use public buses in our institute. How can we have the money to buy a plane? After chatting with Director Li for a while, he escorted the 2 fish thieves out of the reservoir. Lao Li is not a good guy in the traditional sense. It can be seen from the fact that he kicked the harpoon man without saying a word that he is not a disciplined person. During the Chinese New Year, he was given a shopping card worth $1,000, but he accepted it half-heartedly. All police officers are like this. If they are as nice as teachers, they will not be able to deal with criminals. Fortunately, Lao Li is quite conscientious in his work. In principle, there is no problem, and he has always gotten along well with the zoo. We can't rely on Laoli for everything. After all, their police force is limited. There are only 2 or 3 big cats and kittens in one police station. If they have to take care of such a large area with tens of thousands of people, it is inevitable that some of them will not be able to take care of them, Su Ming thought. After thinking about it, he told Liang Shi, you can allocate a sum of money from the fishery company's account and set up a security department. Okay. Should the bald man be responsible for the selection of security guards? Liang Shi asked. No, you go to Section Chief Dong. He is a veteran and can contact retired comrades. I want to form a regular security team. Also, when patrolling, be careful. Ordinary citizens who come to fish, and the malicious stealing of fish like today are different in nature and must be treated differently, Su Ming ordered. The bald guy knows a lot of bad friends in the underworld. If he is asked to find someone to form a security team, it will definitely be a mess in the end, and Zhou Jin will follow the old way of bullying others by taking advantage of his power. Since it is a security team, let Chief Dong help and recruit a few retired soldiers. This can not only ensure combat effectiveness, but also solve the employment problem of retired soldiers, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Liang Shi asked people to go into the water and release the fish in the fishing net of the small broken boat. Su Ming also chatted with Liang Shi about the fishery situation in the reservoir. Liang Shi is full of confidence. No matter who runs the business, it is impossible to completely avoid stealing fish. Even with this planned loss, the fish in the reservoir this year are generally growing well. Even if the economic fish brought back by Su Ming are excluded, relying only on the 4 major carps and black carp, there will be a good harvest by the end of the year. In addition to the reservoir rent, the funds reserved for next year, labor and feed expenses, the net profit is theoretically even slightly higher than when Zhou Jin was in charge. No one in the world doesn't love money, especially the harvest brought by hard work. Listening to Liang Shi's work report, several employees present also looked very happy. Before Su Ming, the big leader, boarded the plane, he stood at the cabin door and waved, "Comrades, work hard. When the fish are sold, let everyone have a prosperous year." Under the see-off of the fishery company employees, the plane slowly took off. "Boss, where are we going next?" Tony asked. "Moxie County, Suntown. I'll treat you to game, ride wild boars, and watch the big show." Dividing line. Publish a VIP group, 496319172, genuine book friends with a fan value of more than 2,000 can join, and take the initiative to send a screenshot of the fan value after joining the group, and change the nickname to the reader name on the website. It doesn't matter if you don't have 2,000 fans, you can join the ordinary group 332352624. This group is about to be full, and it seems that it needs to be upgraded. Welcome to chat and gossip. There are many girls in the group, but they are all mine. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 387. Mom, look, handgun. There's a plane. Have you got your sperm in your head? Are you doing this in broad daylight? It's not a masturbation, it's a plane. See for yourself. Emma, run quickly, US imperialism is coming. Which wedding photo studio did you use to take photos? This trip will cost a lot of money. City people are really good at playing. Husband, you have to work hard to make money. I will also fly in the future. The hummingbird helicopter flew over the city, attracting a lot of attention along the way. Although helicopters are not expensive, there are still very few people with private jets. The price is not expensive, but the maintenance costs are staggering. Generally, cars need maintenance once every 5,000 or 10,000 kilometers. Helicopters basically need maintenance every time they fly. The cost of use is too high. Take a straight line all the way to Suntown. The advantage of a small private helicopter like Hummingbird is that it flies in a straight line without waiting for traffic lights. Moreover, the flying speed is not slow. If you bring Yingying, it will be full, and the speed can be maintained at about 160 km per hour. 1/3 faster than a car running on the highway. Of course, if a car has to go over 220 km per hour on a highway, it's two different things if you pay more and lose your life. After leaving the city, Zhao Yun leaned on his seat and began to take a nap. Su Ming and Yingying lay on the window and looked out for a while. The initial fresh energy had passed and they were a little tired. Yingying lay on the back seat to sleep, occupying most of the back seat. Su Min simply put its fat body is used as a big pillow, and I sleep on it. Tony was brave enough to entertain himself by plugging in his headphones and playing the Beatles album Please Please Me while controlling the plane. A trip that just goes away. No wonder rich people like to buy animal fur coats. It's so comfortable to sleep on a fleshy body. You can't help but fall asleep even if you're not sleepy. Although the roar of the propeller could be heard in his ears, Su Ming began to dream in a daze within a few minutes. I dreamed that in Lanruo Temple, Nangong was sitting by the hot spring wearing an almost completely transparent tulle, and kept flirting with him. Su Ming rushed in without hesitation. A wisp of tassels floated out from the spring water. Su Ming had just turned Nangong into a little white sheep, and was about to have a Neza fight. Before he started, several women suddenly rushed out from around him and surrounded him with sneers. Ding Jing wore a tight leather jacket, long high-top shoes, and held a long whip full of thorns in her hand, making a burst of explosions in the air. Hong Fi Fei wore a translucent cat cook outfit, and it looked like she was the Hollow One, but with a large kitchen knife like a door panel on his waist. He bowed slightly to him, with two pointed little tiger teeth exposed at the corners of his mouth, and said with a sinister smile, "Please take care of me." With a terrifying expression, he. Baoan wore a super short pair of the policewoman uniform, with a half-step skirt tightly wrapped around her small buttocks, walked out with a twist, suddenly took out a gold AK-47 from behind, and shouted, "Hold your head with both hands." While saying at the same time, she took out a large durian grenade full of thorns from her chest. I don't know how she stuffed it in. "You're such a heartless person, you actually have so many women." Nangong was furious. He held down Su Ming's head and pushed it into the water. The force was so strong that Su Ming couldn't resist even with all his strength. I was suffocated by the hot spring water, and it became difficult to breathe. I felt suffocated and uncomfortable. I could hear the weird laughter of several women in my ears. "Suffocate him. Kill him. Blow him up. Let me go and let me eat him. Wow, haha, this is what happens when you have a harem." I'm hummed. Su Ming suddenly woke up. It turned out to be a dream. The roar of helicopter propellers was heard in my ears, and in front of me was a small cabin. Zhao Yun leaned his head on the back of the chair and snored softly. Tony was maneuvering the plane, his body shaking, probably because he was changing to black rap music. One hand made strange gestures from time to time. Yingying slept like a dead pig, and her back was wet with Su Ming's saliva. No wonder he dreams about hot springs. Su Ming sucked the saliva from his mouth and wiped his mouth. He slept so soundly that he almost choked to death on his own saliva. Looking out through the window, there is no longer a highway below. Instead, the eyes are filled with mountains and forests. Line like winding mountain roads surround the mountain tops. Occasionally, a few cars pass by, like moving insects. Unlike the majestic Chenbai Mountains in the north, nor the desolation in the west, the hilly areas in the south are covered with lush mountains. The humid climate makes the tops of the mountains covered with a light mist. Seen from a distance in the air, it looks like there are fairy caves and fairyland in this world. The county seat of Moxie County is surrounded by mountains. On the hillside around this circular area, there are scattered small villages. One of them, leaning halfway up the mountain, is the town of Bamboo. Don't even sleep. It's here, Su Ming shouted excitedly as he rushed back to his hometown. Zhao Yun was sleeping soundly when he was startled and suddenly stood up like a corpse. What's going on? Then he looked down and breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, we're here. Yingying shook her body and covered her head with her paws, as if to say, don't make any noise, don't make any noise, let me sleep a little longer. Don't sleep. If you sleep again, you will grow into a pig. Get up and I will take you to see the pigs. Su Ming held Yingying's thighs and rocked around for a while. Yingying hummed twice before she reluctantly got up. But when it lay on the window and saw the forest below, its spirits suddenly improved. After circling in the air for a few times, the hummingbird aimed at a piece of open space and slowly landed. It happened to be the piece of farmland where wild boars came to destroy crops during the Chinese New Year. After a few months, the farmland has recovered its vitality. The crops are growing well. Several greenhouses have been rebuilt and wire mesh has been pulled around them. The people working in the fields were also startled by the sound of the motor in the air. They put down their farm work and looked up at the slowly descending hummingbird. Ah, Abba Abba. Where did the plane come from? Quickly inform Mayor Wu that a plane came to our town to steal food. Bullshit, they flew a plane just to steal your 2 kilograms of cabbage. It's not even enough for the gas. Could it be that some big boss came to invest? Didn't the eldest son of the Su family say that there are many scammers these days? Be careful of scammers. Quickly ask people to protect the wild boar cubs. Don't let them cheat you. No, that person, isn't it the eldest son of the Su family, second uncle? Look, is it Su Ming? After the plane landed on the ground, someone finally saw a familiar face through the glass window. Huh? It seems to be Su Ming. Second uncle wiped the sweat from his forehead, put down the farm tools, and walked towards the helicopter half-believingly. The door of the helicopter was opened with a whoosh, and Su Ming didn't come out, but a big black and white bear rushed out first. As soon as Yingying came out, she was delighted by the natural ecology in front of her. There were cabbages, watermelons, tomatoes, and delicious food all over the ground. She was so happy that she rushed into the field. This is a panda. Second uncle was dumbfounded. Wild boars harm crops, so it's okay to kill them, but this is a panda, how can it be killed? Su Ming followed closely, grabbed Yingying's little ears, pulled it back, and then grinned at the stunned villagers around him. Second uncle. I'm back. Dividing line. Seeing the weight problem of pandas, I wrote 60 kilograms at first because I saw a video of pandas in Wolong Nature Reserve. 2 pandas were lying on the administrator, and the administrator could easily stand up. Seeing that some book friends mentioned it, I checked it out and it was indeed lighter. There are adult pandas that weigh more than 100 kilograms or 200 kilograms. It has been changed. Today is Children's Day, and the 5 chapters were posted together in the morning. Well, happy holidays. Well, I don't care whether you celebrate or not, anyway, I celebrate Children's Day. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 388. Helicopters, a thing I had only seen on TV, appeared on the hillside, which shocked the villagers who were working. The key is that it's so rare. Who would buy a helicopter to play with? From the average person's perspective, that's definitely too much money to spend. Is flying a plane popular in the city now? The second uncle was completely confused. It's okay to pay off the plane. Anyway, everyone knows that Su Ming is prosperous and he can spend it as he wants. What really surprised the villagers was the panda Yingying. The panda is a real national treasure. So much so that the second uncle thought that Su Ming, the boy who made so much money, was secretly engaged in animal smuggling business. He held Su Ming and told him earnestly for a long time not to do anything illegal and disciplined, and to be a good person. Abba, Abba. Chen Muabo led a group of children who came after hearing the news and pointed around the helicopter. Several children wanted to reach out and touch it, but the second ant grabbed their ears and pulled them back, with their hands on their hips. A bunch of scolding. "Come on, auntie, this big iron guy is indestructible." Su Ming chuckled, and asked Tony to lock the cabin door, and said to the second uncle, "I'll go home and take a look first." "Let's go together, the work is almost done." When going down the mountain, you can see the future development direction of the children in Suntown. Several children were reluctant to leave and circled around the plane. It seemed that they would study science and engineering in the future. Several children were more interested in pandas and followed Su Ming. Strictly speaking, the back of Yingying's butt. Along the way, Su Ming and the second uncle chatted about the recent situation in the town. During the Chinese New Year, a field of crops was destroyed by wild boars. Thanks to the help of classmate Liang Shi, the compensation had already been paid. Mute, Lao Gu and his family had almost no money. What's the loss? Less than half of the young adults in the town went to Su Ming's winery and fishing company. Over the past few months, they sent a lot of money to their families. The special wild boar breeding farm has begun to bear fruit, with the first batch of piglets. The older left behind staff in the village take turns caring for and managing the farm during their spare time. "Let's go home first, have a bite to eat, and then go see the wild boar." A foreigner and a panda appeared in Bamboo Town, causing another minor commotion. In this remote ravine, foreigners and pandas are both rare animals. On the way home, Tony, a blonde, a handsome green-eyed foreigner, received no less attention than Yingying, mostly from the older girls and younger wives in the town. The two-story building at home has been completely renovated. As soon as I entered the door, I bumped into my mother face to face. "Eh? When did you come back? Where did you park your car?" This panda." Su's mother was stunned for a moment. She looked at Su Ming and then at Yingying, who was following Su Ming. Her eyes widened even more. "Big." The second uncle patted Su Ming heavily on the shoulder and laughed boldly. "Your Su Ming is now flying a plane. In order to come to see you conveniently, he bought a plane specially. Your son is filial." Su Ming didn't dare to tell his mother about buying the plane. He first introduced Zhao Yun and Tony to the second uncle and his mother, and then explained the situation of the plane with a smile. After hearing this, my mother said to the second uncle with pride and a bit of complaint, "Look at this kid, he knows how to spend money randomly. It depends on when I can't do it. In order to save those few hours, I spend so much money. Isn't this a waste?" That's not what they say. For those of us who are half buried, money is worthless. Su Ming is the big boss now, and money is more valuable than gold. What did you say on TV? Oh, by the way, time is wealth. If he saves this little time, he can earn back the money of the plane. Don't praise him. He is so young and his tail can reach the sky, Mother Su said modestly with a smile. This is not a boast. The second uncle laughed, turned around and waved away the children who were watching the pandas at the door. "While your family is chatting, I will go home first. Su Ming will bring your two friends over for a drink tonight." Okay. Su Ming often had dinner at the second uncle's house when he was a child, and he was not polite. Mother Su smiled and invited Zhao Yun and Tony to sit at home, boil water and make tea and chat about home affairs. The panda Yingying was very familiar with it, so she dragged a big bamboo rocking chair over and climbed up with her buttocks sticking out, sitting down like a little adult. Sitting on it with two short legs hanging down and swaying. "Su Ming, I'll cook for you. You go and have a look at the breeding farm in the mountains. The villagers followed your suggestion and set up a breeding farm. You can help me with this, but you can't be a hands-off shopkeeper. In the future, Xiaozu, when I grow up, I need you to help me find a market," my mother warned. "I know. The breeding farm is on a hillside near a mountain. Although it is a wild breeding ground, it is still surrounded by barbed wire to prevent the little wild boars from disappearing. However, the area is very large. As soon as Su Ming approached the wire cage, he attracted the attention of several little guys who were squeaking in the bushes looking for something to eat. The little hybrid wild boar has reddish-brown stripes all over its body and is only 30 to 40 centimeters long at most. It looks small and does not even have all its teeth, but it has a very bad temper. As soon as they saw someone approaching, several small wild boars not only were not scared away, but instead made grumpy grunts, lowering their heads and ignoring Su Ming and the others, and bumped into them. Bang, 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 bang. The iron fence placed between the people and the pigs was shaking from the impact. The little wild boar was not strong enough to break through the barbed wire, but instead it fell heavily. But as if they had a blood feud with Su Ming, they got up and bumped into each other again. One of the difficulties in breeding hybrid wild boars is that the little wild boars are too violent. They go crazy when they see people and often hit themselves and bleed. At the beginning, Su Ming did not intend to use his mental power to deliberately appease them, but handed the task of raising the little wild boars to the second brother and others. Who? Not far away, a few deep hums came. When the little wild boars heard the sound, they immediately calmed down. Their little black eyes rolled around a few times and they ran away quickly. Several huge figures appeared in sight. Huh? Second brother, Pig Lao Er, how did you become like this? Su Ming was stunned and couldn't believe what he saw. The second brother, who was fat and strong a few months ago, has obviously lost a lot of weight, and even looks a bit like a malnourished beast in the zoo. When he walks, even the skeleton on his shoulders is clearly visible. Pig Lao Er, who lost an egg, followed behind, and he was not much better. The spirit is okay, but he is too thin. He doesn't look like a wild boar at all, but like two sick tigers. When the second senior brother and the second pig saw Su Ming, they were also obviously stunned for several seconds. Then they recognized Su Ming and rushed to the edge of the wire fence, raised their heads and screamed like a pig being slaughtered, with big tears rolling down their cheeks. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 389. The tragedies of life can be divided into two types. The first is getting what you ask for, and the second is getting too much. It can also be said in Jian Zongshi's words, those outside the besieged city want to come in, and those inside the besieged city want to get out. Same goes for pigs. The reason why the second senior brother and the second pig have become like this in just a few months is definitely not because the people in Sunshine Town mistreat them. On the contrary, they are treated better than ordinary people, and they are popular and drink spicy food. Not to mention, in terms of personal life, it is almost the same as that of ancient emperors, 3 palaces, 6 courtyards, and 72 concubines. There are currently dozens of big sows in Sunzan, all of which are surrounded by these two. In addition to the two of them, there were actually several other boars in the original herd of wild boars. There were many options for breeding, and it was not necessarily the two of them who had to go to battle in person every time. The only thing to blame is that these two guys are too tough, and they are 18 miles ahead of the other boars. Breeding and genetics are inseparable. If I breed well, my son will grow strong, so they naturally become the first choice. After a few months, the brothers and sisters were almost exhausted. However, the food provided by Sunzan for them was very sufficient. Although they lost some weight, their physical strength did not decrease at all, but improved a lot. They were very suitable. Used for breeding. If you are a human, you can still rely on willpower to hold back, but animals have no problem holding back during estrus and can only act based on instinct. Probably these two have been in contact with spiritual power for the longest time, and their inexplicable estrus period has also become extra long. Now the two brothers feel like vomiting when they see the sow. Seeing Su Ming, the two pigs burst into tears. Su Ming had promised to take them away. They looked forward to each other night after night, waiting for the day when Su Ming would come back and rescue them from the sea of desire. Today, they finally brought Su Ming to the sea. Now that Ming is back, don't mention this grievance anymore. Thank you for your hard work. Su Ming felt chilly and blamed himself for forgetting this problem. He couldn't imagine coming back a few days later. The two wild boars had done evil, destroying a lot of crops and injuring people. But after such a long period of labor reform, they had made up for their original mistakes and made up for their mistakes. Su Ming patted the second senior brother's head across the fence, and Chi Qiran said, don't worry, I will help you live a good life in the future. Ouch, the second senior brother looked up to the sky and roared. On her way here, Ying Ying stole a watermelon from a field on the side of the road. Su Ming criticized it severely, but Ying Ying kept holding the green watermelon in her arms as if it were a treasure and was reluctant to eat it. Seeing that the second senior brother and the second pig were crying so sadly, Ying Ying hesitated for a moment and shook the watermelon towards the second senior brother through the cage, as if she wanted to treat him to eat the watermelon to comfort him. With a slap of his meaty palms, the watermelon split into several pieces. He threw half of it to the two wild boars, and he held a piece and gnawed it until the juices overflowed. Huh? I didn't expect you to be quite generous. Not bad, Su Ming smiled and rubbed Ying Ying's big head. Su Ming, when did you come back? In the distance, Mayor Wu strode down the hillside. Kaideo. Mayor Wu, why are you here? I just have something to tell you. I just went to your house and you were not there. Your mother said you were here. What happened again? Su Ming was stunned, thinking that I am a disaster star, something will happen wherever I go, and I can't live in peace even if I just go back to my hometown for a walk. Su Ming thought wrong this time. What old Wu wanted to tell him was not a bad thing. In theory, it was a good thing. The two wild boars worked hard for several months and it was very effective. There were more than 200 wild boar cubs in the town. According to Su Ming's previous design, the big wild boar and the little wild boar were allowed to live in the wild instead of being kept in captivity. The little wild boar had a very high survival rate and grew stronger. After the news spread, before the piglets grew up, the boss already came to place an order, and 150 of them were ordered at once. It would be a great thing if that was all. However, the price given by the other party was very low. After all, there had been no cooperation before, the wild boar had not grown up, and the other party's boss did not dare to offer a high price from the beginning. Just when Su Ming came back, Mayor Wu wanted to discuss with Su Ming what to do, whether to book it first at this price, or to wait. Su Ming thought for a while. There were pros and cons to making a reservation. The biggest advantage is that you can get a deposit before the wild boar matures, which can better guarantee production. At the same time, sales are guaranteed, and the pressure on farmers will be less. Of course, the disadvantage is the low price, unless the Sunchinj wild boar is now a well-known product and has a guaranteed reputation. If it were left to Zhao Yun to deal with this problem, Zhao Yun would not consider placing a reservation at all. But it is different in Suntown. In addition to Su Ming's investment, the breeding farm also has the townspeople's bottom line fundraising. If a sum of money can be returned as soon as possible, for the townspeople were a reassurance, but old Wu couldn't make up his mind either. Did someone in town gossip? Su Ming heard something amiss from old Wu's words and frowned. This problem is actually very simple. Strictly speaking, it cannot be called a problem. The initial investment in the breeding farm has been basically completed, and there is almost no need for subsequent financial investment. Wild boars are free-range and only require labor. Special wild boars grow. It's coming soon, and it will be available for sale in at most half a year. Almost all the young people in Suntown work outside and send money back every month. All in all, Sunzen is not short of money now, so why sell it at a low price? Lao Wu has been a grassroots cotter all his life, so he should understand this truth, but now he comes here to ask himself, there is only one explanation, maybe he is under some pressure. Just now at home, my mother also specifically mentioned sales to me. At that time, I was a little surprised. This little wild boar was born not long ago, and it is still early for it to grow up. Isn't it too early to talk about sales now? Su Ming thought that these pressures came from the townspeople who had invested in the shares, and he felt very unhappy. He thought to himself that I was helping Suntown get rid of poverty and become rich almost free of charge. I just paid it back without being grateful, and I was still causing trouble behind the scenes. If it really happened in this case, I don't care. If you want to be poor, just be poor. No, no, Lao Wu quickly waved his hands and explained, no one in the town is gossiping. You are so kind. If it hadn't been for you, our town would have been deceived. How could we be here today? Folks, this is still the case. You know, your second uncle and the others even said privately that even if the wild boar is not sold, they cannot sell it at this price. How much does the other party charge per pound? Su Ming asked. Old Wu smiled bitterly and reported a number. How is this possible? Zhao Yun, who had never spoken, said in a deep voice, this is the price of domestic pigs. Wild boar meat must be at least double the price. If the quality is good, it can be several times higher. Mayor Wu, who is this? The person who negotiated business with you has absolutely no sincerity in offering such a price. After Zhao Yun finished speaking, he looked at Su Ming thoughtfully. He is an outsider, so some things are hard to say in depth. If the prices were similar, it would be understandable for Lao Wu to hesitate whether to sell it or not, but at this price, why should he hesitate? Just refused it outright. Su Ming thought the same way and asked, Mayor Wu, what's going on? Hi. Old Wu sighed, the owner of that house is a relative of a powerful person in the county. When he came, the other party personally brought him to talk. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 390. At this point, both Su Ming and Zhao Yun suddenly realized. In the entire Moxie County, only Suntown raises special wild boars. Wild boars are not too rare, and the meat is fresh. But raising them in the wild is different. After this reputation spread, people were eyeing it. To put it bluntly, the boss passed because of the relationship with a certain powerful person. You need to buy it at a low price and then resell it to make money. No wonder Lao Wu is in trouble. Old Wu didn't tell Su Ming explicitly what kind of powerful person he was, but Old Wu was the mayor of the town, and he was considered a prince, of course the youngest one. Since even he thought he was powerful, he must be in Moxie County. It does have some influence. 150 wild boars, tens of thousands of kilograms of meat, the purchase price was suddenly reduced by at least half, and the profit was definitely not small. Do the people in the town know about this? Su Ming asked. Old Wu nodded, wondering, the leadership team of the town, your second uncle, they all know it, and they don't let me tell you. Originally, you have done too much for Suntown. You yourself are in Yangchuan City. I have a lot of business to take care of, and I don't want to cause you any more trouble. But if I sell it at this price, not only will the villagers not make any money, they will also suffer losses. I have thought about it for a long time, and I really have no other choice but to come to you. It just so happens that you are back today. Mayor Wu, please stop talking, I'll take care of this matter. Su Ming sneered, Moxie County is so poor, and there are still people playing this trick. If Su Ming had his own connections in Yangchuan City, he would easily be able to solve the problem with just a phone call without even alarming Wang Jianxi. But the county magistrate is not as good as the county manager. Moxie County has nothing to do with Yangchuan City. The relationship between Yangchuan City and Moxie County is not very important. Wang Jianxi cannot be appointed as deputy mayor because of more than 100 pigs. Come out and say hello. Mayor Wu, please summon all the shareholders of the farm and let's discuss it together. I have a few words to say. Su Ming finished speaking to Mayor Wu with a stern face, then turned around and smiled apologetically at Tony. Tony, I said I would treat you to a big dinner before, but I'm afraid I have to wait. There's something going on in town. If you're bored, you can fly back first and pick me up in 2 days. Tony shook his head solemnly. No, boss, although I have only been here for a few hours, I think the people in your hometown are very kind. Protecting kind people and fighting evil is a true gentleman's behavior. This is bigger than anything else. Food is important, please let me stay and join you. Su Ming was stunned for a moment when he told this guy. He thought to himself that this foreigner looked like a middle-aged man. Could it be that he had read too many night novels? Every Eastern man has a martial arts dream in his heart, and a Western man has a knighthood dream in his heart. Okay, Tony, come along. The large ancestral hall in Suntown was packed with people. Almost half of the people in Suntown were shareholders of the breeding farm. They rushed over immediately after receiving the news of the meeting. I told you, Lao Wu, not to tell him about this, but you refused to listen. The second uncle's voice was like a bell, and he said dissatisfiedly, the child just wants to have a rest when he comes back. We can't help him, we can't always hold him back. Second uncle, don't blame Mayor Wu. Mother Su said, even if he doesn't tell me, I still have to tell Su Ming. Su Ming came from Suntown. If something happens in the town, he has no obligation to refuse. Su Ming smiled inwardly, thinking that his mother was really good at being a good person. As a son, she understood her mother's thoughts very well, and she didn't want to worry about it, so she only briefly mentioned the sales before, and did not tell the truth directly. Only now that Mayor Wu has pierced the window paper, my mother will express her position like this to help her establish her image in the town. The second uncle is a straight-tempered and righteous person, and his true intention is not to bother Su Ming. But among the shareholders, most of them still hope that Su Ming can help. A few thousand yuan or 10,000 yuan of equity is nothing to Su Ming. To them, it is a coffin. Now in the entire bamboo town, Su Ming is now the most promising person. Apart from him, no one else can solve the problem. The only thing to blame is that the price given by Boss Jian is too low. If it were sold at that price, we would have worked hard for him for a year. Boss Jian is just a bully. If I really sell pork to him, I won't be able to make any money, and I won't be able to swallow it. You put it lightly, what if you don't sell it to him? What if you don't sell it to him? If I say hello, no one in the entire Moxie County will dare to buy it, and no one will even buy it in the city. No one mentioned this topic at first, everyone was holding it back, but now it suddenly felt like a hornet's nest had been stabbed. Shareholders, big and small, were very angry and started making noises. The second aunt pushed aside everyone and walked out, shouting at the top of her lungs, "Don't make any noise, don't make any noise." He was still chattering, probably because he was holding his breath too deeply, and the shareholders felt unhappy and weighed down a stone. Finally, the second uncle slapped the table hard, and the lid of the teacup on the table shook with such a bang. "Look at you, one or two of you, both are dozens of years old, talking about useless things." The second uncle glared. "Shut up, Su Ming, you have a lot of experience and connections, tell me what to do, everyone listens to you." "Yes, we all listen to Su Ming." Mayor Wu also said, "Su Ming is the major shareholder. He didn't say anything. Why are you arguing?" These two people, one representing the town's official authority and the other a private authority, spoke at the same time, and the scene suddenly became quiet. They both looked at Su Ming to see if he had any good ideas. Nothing to say, everyone has made it very clear just now, this price is bullying, there is no such reason in the world, Su Ming said firmly, no sale. Mayor Wu, if Boss Jian comes to ask again, tell him that if he wants to order, the price will be increased fourfold, and he will only order 50 heads. If he wants, take it, otherwise forget it. No one in the audience spoke. Although everyone didn't want to buy, they also knew that if they offended Boss Jian and Director Jian, no one in the nearby towns would dare to buy in the future. Mother Su pulled Su Ming's sleeve, don't talk big, what if you don't sell? More than 200 pigs, tens of thousands of pounds of meat, you can buy it and eat it. In fact, everyone wanted to ask this question, but they were embarrassed to speak. We have opened a restaurant in the zoo, and we will buy it at the market price. Even if Mayor Wu didn't say it, I had this plan before. The wild boars we raise are purely wild, drinking spring water and eating wild fruits to grow up, so the meat quality is definitely not a problem. Ah! You opened a restaurant again, Mother Su, Mayor Wu, and others were all stunned when they heard it. It's only been a few months since I last saw Su Ming. In such a short time, he has opened a shop again? Small shop, Su Ming chuckled.